This morning, let's explore the symbolism of Yab Yum. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi. This is the Lama you were looking for. This morning we could chant and meditate and enjoy a lesson or two. But first, if you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as transformatively as Obi-Wan Kenobi upon the sands of Tatooine, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Once again, this morning we could explore the symbolism of Yab Yum that you too could meditate like a Jedi. If at any point during this morning's live stream you have a question about meditation or philosophy or even chanting, there is no need to be shy. Simply type your question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. Good morning, Dr. Darren. I see you, and I reread your questions, and I intend to address them. Here in California, it is dark 100. And if you were as drowsy as me, you are welcome to join me for 2 or 3 repetitions of geriatric step back squat thrusts. You don't have to. It's optional. Wait. May I liberate all beings by mastering the Eightfold Path through the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings by mastering the Eightfold Path. Example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings by mastering the Eightfold Path through Buddha's example, instructions, and students. We come now to the symbolism of Yab Yum. On the right, you'll see a male Buddha, the color of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn. He is in sexual congress with his tantric partner, who is the color of a fluffy white cloud. And her hair is vermilion. If you've ever spent time in East Indian culture, you'll know there's a lot of denial about old age. And the moment women start getting white hairs, they put henna in their hair. And so you can walk down the street and see an 80-year-old woman who's clearly 80 years old, but her hair is vermilion. So vermilion hair has been part of Indian culture for a very long time. I think it's funny because my maternal grandfather and my maternal cousin were also redheads, but that's unimportant. So let's read the synopsis. Their nudity reminds us of mindfulness's vulnerability. Let's start right there. Neuroscience tells us that as we inhale, we access our sympathetic nervous system that is wired to support the sensory acuity that makes mindfulness possible. The mindfulness that is vulnerable and passive and visceral and spontaneous. A combat strategy is to anger your opponent. Angering opponent changes his neurology from peripheral to foveal. It gives him or her tunnel vision, which can allow one's teammates to sneak up on them with greater ease. As a survival mechanism, foveal vision, the fruit of concentration, is not useful. Peripheral vision, the fruit of mindfulness, is beneficial to have one's senses wide open while traversing the plains of the Serengeti oh so many millennia ago. So there is a biological imperative not to concentrate but to practice mindfulness. Vulnerable, passive, visceral. So that is what we are reminded of by the symbolism. We continue with the second couplet. Their bodies comprised of light remind us of non-graspability. Non-graspability is, if perceived through the lens of literalism, causes much more harm than good, forcing people to rely on belief and theories and actually undermining their perceptions of the here and now. However, we are taught there are some who would teach that non-graspability or emptiness or voidness or shunyata have only ever supposed to be taken figuratively. With every exhalation, we access our parasympathetic nervous system that is wired for physical relaxation and mental release. To let go of whatever we notice during the in-breath as if, and that's a simile, as if it was as non-graspable as a body comprised of light, as a paradise comprised of light, as a mantra comprised of light, as a syllable comprised of light, as the infinite azure sky and a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although is tantalizing to the eye, is non-tangible to the grasp. Their beauty reminds us of love's energy. We've all been in relationships. We've all had someone look at us through eyes of love that seem to sing, "You can do no harm." We've also had people sneer at us through eyes of hate that seem to scream, you can do no right. And most of us will agree the former is much more attractive than the latter. So, in the Tantric Buddhist iconography, the yidams, the archetypes of enlightenment, are always depicted as being handsome and beautiful, not just because that's prettier to look at, not just because we're vain and we want to be pretty, but because it reminds us that the greatest beautifying agent is love. I'm reminded of a line from an Eagles song all the way back from high school, so I may have to paraphrase it. A pretty face don't mean no pretty heart, right? So, symbolically, we're being taught that inner beauty is more important than outer beauty, that the greatest beauty is love. The fourth quatrain, the stability with which he sits reminds us of centeredness. The abandon with which she sports reminds us of spontaneity. So let us pretend, let us visualize for a moment two mountains that are adjacent, so their bases touch, right? And one mountain is the mountain of contrivance. You have an agenda, and your agenda has an agenda, and you've got a sharpened pencil behind each ear, and like Lucy Van Pelt in the Peanuts comic strip, you are never separated from a trusty clipboard. On the other hand, the other mountain represents scattered spontaneity. That's like Peppermint Patty. She just ran off a cliff. She'll learn how to fly on the way down. The meandering river that fills the valley formed by the place where those two mountains meet is symbolic of the middle ground, of not the absence of spontaneity, nor the scatteredness of spontaneity, but centered spontaneity. That is a fringe benefit of regularly and effectively training in mindfulness and meditation. And it is the key to helping us to navigate life in a manner most skillful and sustainable. This seems as good as any time to talk about experiences. So, how would Lucy Van Pelt deal with an experience encountered during meditation? Well, she would be hyper analytical. She would write it down. She would outline her findings. She would Google anything that was tangentially related to each of her individual findings. She would arrange it in a chart and look for an overarching pattern in a way that would please Indiana Jones in the third movie in the series, The Last Crusade. Or at least perhaps Indiana Jones' daddy. Daddy. How would Peppermint Patty deal with contemplative experiences? Well, she'd forget about them. Or she'd get really, really excited, get up for meditation, run around, and do an interpretive dance. Then she'd do some push-ups, have a snack, and take a nap. So, what is the ideal way of responding to experiences? We're aware of them, and we let go of them. We do that through using the concise meditation, watching this, relaxing, or feeling this, relaxing. We label it as this, we let our body relax. Now, there's part of us that's super, super scared and said, dude, if it's to be, it's up to me. I'm super smart. I got letters behind my name and I can figure shit out. And the answer is yes, you may be clever and you may be able to assign meaning to phenomena, but that does not necessarily ensure that the meaning will be correct or the effect will be therapeutic. If what we really want is to grow into the person that we were born to be, our best selves, then we have to use a method of managing insight that is the most productive. Let us pretend that the 3 pounds of meat between our ears was a supercomputer. We can make the mistake of using just one part of the brain, or we can let the brain work in cooperation with itself. We're primates. We have prefrontal cortex. Is cortexi? Corti? I'm not sure. Each of us has a prefrontal cortex. There you go. And it can be clever. Now, what is the difference between using the prefrontal cortex in a short-sighted clever way or a long-sighted wise way? When we are indulging our controlling tendencies, we are under the swoon, we are in the thrall of our own amygdala, the seat of fear in our underbrain, if there is such a word. When our prefrontal cortex is in partnership with our amygdala, the best that we can hope for is cleverness. However, when we are in lockstep. When we are in lockstep with the seat of empathy, the hub of our mirror neurons, metaphorically speaking, the anterior cingulate gyrus, when we are coming at life from a place of being flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, and cooperative, when our prefrontal cortex is in cooperation with our empathy center, then we approach wisdom. Wisdom that is governed by being flexible, not only loving, but also laid back. Way back in the early 90s, I saw this stand-up comic. And he's and now it is the time for the spontaneous humor. And he reaches in his pocket and pulls out a 3x5 card and reads it. The great joke is he planned for spontaneity, which is antithetical. Planning for spontaneity is like making love in the name of virginity. Although it's a fun way to spend the afternoon, it gets you no closer to your goal and actually pulls you further from it. Similarly, spontaneity is the fruit of what we talked about a few moments ago, being vulnerable, passive, visceral, and, you guessed it, spontaneous. We profit from our meditative experiences by noticing them and letting go of them. Taking comfort in the idea that that experience is just one part of our brain communicating to another part of our brain in an allegoric way, which is fundamental. Our brains have evolved to think symbolically. The key to benefiting from that allegoric message that we are essentially eavesdropping on is to continue to flow from centered spontaneity, to allow our choices and utterances and deeds to flow from a place of centered spontaneity. That is how we give the supercomputer between our ears the opportunity to act on whatever message it was giving ourselves. Now, all of us are wired for fear. It's part of our catalog of survival strategies. And all of us are wired to be controlling. And all of us are wired to have just enough pride and just enough hubris to say, be like Don Knotts on the Andy Griffith Show, go, yeah, I got a good beat on things. I think I can figure this out myself. Step back, supercomputer. I've got a sharpened pencil and a legal pad. We've all been there. We've all done that. The only question is whether we have the courage to admit it to ourselves and the resolve to benefit from learning from our own absurdity. That is why we not only contemplate, we also meditate. So think of it this way. What if contemplation was like eating a meal and meditation was like digesting and assimilating and the nutrients, digesting the meal, assimilating the nutrients, and disposing of the waste? That would explain why we spend more time in meditation than contemplation in a sadhana practice. It will also show us that our conscious cleverness takes a back seat to our visceral training. Now it's time for us to, the lecture is concluded, and it's time for us to chant and contemplate and meditate. Let's take a 50-second break for housekeeping. Every 12 hours, I broadcast a live meditation class without any ads. This channel is supported by the generosity of viewers just like you. With your help, this channel could support the next generation of nuns, monks, yogis, lamas, and even brick-and-mortar meditation centers, each replete with a resident teacher and their apprentice. If this speaks to you and you'd like to help out, even for as little as the cost of 1 cup of coffee a month, no problem. Just poke around the description area below the video. You'll find links, one for Patreon, another for PayPal. You'll find 2 YouTube buttons, one to join, one for Super Chat. Click whichever one of those 4 things speaks to you. I thank you. So Dr. Darren, I hope that answers your question. If that answer has given birth to more questions or has left some facets of your original questions unanswered, don't be shy. Let me know, and with great specificity in the chat window. I'll do my best to answer it. Well, it's 24 minutes after the hour, so I think it could be Jim Dandy if I tap button number 9, we made our way to this morning's primary practice text, which this iteration will be available for free download in approximately 3 or 4 hours. Fabulous. Let us embrace a loving motivation. May everyone be together. May everyone be free from stress. May everyone be happy. May no one be separated from their happiness. May everyone have balance, free from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, freed. May I liberate all beings by mastering the Eightfold Path through relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings by mastering the Eightfold Path through relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings by mastering the Eightfold Path through relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. Through the cause and effect of my practice of love and letting go, may each sentient being of each world now practice with me in unison. I invoke the Pinsa diamond-like strength of Asato mind, well trained in love and letting go, supplicating with whom may love and letting go be mastered by all. As we chant the mantra, it could feel as if diamond rays were emitting from a thumbnail-sized horizontal six-syllable mantra rosary at our heart, lavishing on one's communication, bodies, and circumstances, with wisdom, love, health, and good fortune centered and spontaneous. We're going to play with 8 mantra exercises. The second 4 will pertain to the wisdom of letting go, and the first 4 will pertain to love. Each of these 8 exercises is going to be figurative. The first 4 are going to be in the intention format or paradigm. So our job here is not to force ourselves to emote or believe or visualize. We're simply going to allow, just like we might let water, just like at the end of a hard day when we're in the shower, we might let the warm water from the nozzle, flow down our head, down our neck, down our back, and let us just really relax. We're gonna play with these words and let them do the heavy lifting of guiding our intention. We're going to let these words guide our intention in such a way that we cannot help but wish that all minds now master the wisdom of letting go, typified by a Buddha's mind, which is symbolized by a one-syllable mantra. In Buddhist manifesting, we do not just manifest for ourselves, but for all others. We do not get specific. We use generalities. During the inhalation, we recite our loving intention. During the exhalation, in addition to chanting the mantra, we physically relax as best we can. Now you're good to go. Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung. Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung. Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung. Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung. Let us lovingly wish that all communication and its interpersonal consequences of all beings now be as loving as a Buddha's form of communication, symbolized here by the 6-syllable mantra. Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung. Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung, Om Benza Sato Hung. Let us lovingly wish that all bodies of all beings now enjoyed optimal health, which is symbolized by the body of the archetype of enlightenment. In this case, the archetype we're playing with is known as Diamond Mind, or Dorje Sempa, or Vajrasattva. Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato. Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato. Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato. Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato. Let us lovingly wish that all circumstances of all beings now be as safe and fortunate as the paradise or pure land or vati of an enlightened archetype, real or imagined. Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato. Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato. Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato. Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato, Om Benza Zato. Having completed the 4 love-oriented mantra exercises, we now turn our attention to the wisdom of letting go. We will play with 8 exercises. All of them are going to employ the cunning tool of rhetorical questions. The first 4 will use mantras, the second 4 will not. The wisdom of letting go is sometimes explained in a concise manner known as, in an abbreviated manner, with the word shunyata, or emptiness, or voidness, which makes perfect sense as a metaphor, but no sense taken literally, as is reinforced by the chant that we will now recite during the next 2 pages. May I let go of all circumstances, bodies, communication, and minds, as if they were as non-graspable as a vast empty void, like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although tantalizing to the eye, could be non-graspable to the hand. We just spent several minutes wishing well to all minds and communication and bodies and circumstances, and now we're going to let go of them in reverse sequence. That's the key to practicing love without it feeding our neurotic, controlling tendencies. And now for a rhetorical question. Why is it that as we inhale, we can sensually observe, visually observe our circumstances, and yet, when we physically relax into our exhalation, these exact same circumstances, be they dangerous or safe, affluent or scarce, can now feel as if they were as non-graspable as a Buddha's real or imagined paradise comprised only of light. By the way, using contemplation as a preliminary practice to meditation is taught, or at least inferred, in the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Why is it that as we inhale, we can sensually perceive our bodies, and yet, as we physically relax into our exhalation, these exact same bodies, be they healthy or sick or beautiful or ugly, could begin to feel as if they were as non-graspable as a Buddha's real or imagined archetype comprised only of light. Let's see if we can repair this. Okay. Why is it that as we inhale, we can auditorily perceive, both literally and metaphorically, our communication and its interpersonal consequences, and yet, as we physically relax into our exhalation, these exact same communications and their interpersonal consequences, be they eloquent or clunky, kind or cruel, could feel as if they were as non-graspable as a six-syllable mantra, real or imagined, comprised only of light. So, quick break to address the brilliance of Dr. Darren Testani. So, if my understanding of your circumstance is correct, you spend many hours every day in the presence of doctoral candidates who are hyper-analytical and really anxious. So because of interdependence, it makes perfect sense that since you are marinating in people possessing a wealth or presenting with a wealth of those attributes, it would influence you as well. So please, oh please, do not beat yourself up. That's my job. Why is it that as we inhale, we can clearly perceive our minds and their functions? Perception, emotion, intention, reason, recollection, and imagination. And yet, as we physically relax into our exhalation, these exact same minds, be they clever or foolish, could begin to feel as if they were as non-graspable as a one-syllable mantra comprised only of light. One moment, I must blow my nose. We're going to play with two distinct metaphors. Let's play with melting as a metaphor of impermanence to help us to better leapfrog over the tyranny of our clinging tendencies. And let us play with absorption as a metaphor of interdependence to help us to better leapfrog over the tyranny of our competitive tendencies. These two, competition and clinging, constitute the two faces of confusion. How could all places blissfully melt into rainbow light that absorbs into this body? How could all bodies blissfully melt into rainbow light that absorbs into this speech? How can all speech blissfully melt into rainbow light that absorbs into this mind? How could all minds misfed imagine the rainbow light that absorbs into infinite emptiness? Let us relax into the non-graspable nature of bliss. What if the most efficient way to practice mindfulness would be simply to silently and mentally recite feeling this during each inhalation? And the most efficient way of practicing meditation would be to simply silently and mentally recite relaxing in harmony with each exhalation. But why would that be? Or how could that be? Every time we inhale, we access our sympathetic nervous system, which is wired for sensory acuity, allowing us to perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly, spontaneously. When we practice in that manner, we can find that the only label we need to use is simply the pronoun this. And as such, we could notice sensations, flavors, scents, sounds, sights, and the like, as well as emotion, intention, thought, memory, and imagination. But what are we to do with all that which we notice? Every time we exhale, we access the parasympathetic nervous system, which supports both the physical relaxation as well as our mental release. During this morning's meditation, what are some of the things we could find ourselves releasing? We could find ourselves releasing our habitual resistance to the presence of things we hate, to the absence of things we crave, to the loss of things to which we cling. And if at any point you feel that this meditation's gone long enough and you want to duck out, that's completely up to you. But I would recommend sealing your practice with some compassionate wishes, which are found in the final pages of this text. You can find them by downloading your own text. That way you are not at my mercy. welcome to the live stream. If you have any questions about meditation, type them in the chat window. Not everybody has 90 minutes or 120 minutes to meditate. So if you do this exercise for 5 minutes and the next exercise for 5 minutes and perhaps 1.5 minutes doing that rainbow recitation we did prior to this, that could be a good practice right there. Especially if you end with the 4 measurables. And that would only take you about 15 minutes. Let's relax into the non-graspable nature of awareness. May all beings have the wisdom, love, health, and boon of diamond minds, mythical mind speech for man lot. May all beings like diamond mind master, being flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, cooperative, and kind. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and commerce, spontaneous and uncontrived. May all beings like diamond mind master the eightfold path as well as liberate others. May each being take auspicious rebirth, master the Buddha's path, and then humble others do likewise. At this very moment, all the peoples and the nations of the earth, may not even the names disease, famine, war, or suffering be heard. Rather may their kind conduct merit wealth and prosperity increase, and may supreme good fortune and well-being always arise for them. Beginning with Kuntu Zangpo and Great Dorje Chang down to my own kindest Ru Lama. Whatever aspirations they have made to benefit beings, may I accomplish them all. If you feel I have heard you, please give this live stream a thumbs up. In approximately 10.5 hours, we could return to explore daydreams, interpretation, and meditation. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy. If you are as geeky as me, this is the way.